Well, hello. Jason Up, New 80s Revolution. In the car. And now I will explain where I've been. And probably where I'll continue to be. I'll start off by asking you not to be concerned about the weight loss. I don't have cancer. But I lose weight really quickly when I'm sick and not eating. So that segues into what's happened. For 14 years, I have had troubles swallowing. Trying to not get the steering wheel in there because it looks like it's shaking. It's not. I've had trouble swallowing. Twice, food has gotten stuck in my esophagus. Full swallows of food, not just, a frosted flake or something, just, a forkful of food. And I immediately go into, it's horrible. I mean, it's an awful, embarrassing thing. Thankfully, it hasn't happened in public. The two times that it's happened at home, where I just immediately start vomiting and choking. Not blocked airway choking, but blocked food tube, esophagus choking. The two times that throwing up did not get the food out, I had to go to the hospital. And I had to sit around uncomfortably for what felt like hours before somebody would come in. They'd have to call in a GI doctor who's probably sleeping. And he had to come in and give an emergency endoscopy, which pushes the food down the esophagus. That's happened twice. It happened 14 years ago, and then it happened about 8 years ago or so. Since 2014, when the first incident happened, I've had handfuls of incidents where the food gets stuck, I throw up, it comes out. I'm all better. I'd say probably 8 to 10 times that's happened. And that's awful. Thankfully, I'm able to get it out. I've never been able to get it down. I gotta get it out. So I had an endoscopy in 2015, and I didn't know what any of the words meant. And as always, nobody explains anything in the medical community. And there was some potential diagnoses. One of them was eosinophilic esophagitis. Eosinophilic esophagitis. Apparently, your white blood cells can over attack or over protect, or whatever white blood cells do. They can collect on your esophagus, and those are called eosinophils. And too many eosinophils cause inflammation and narrowing. The narrowing is the scary part. So that was on the test results, or the potential diagnoses, 8 years ago. And I, of course, didn't know what the heck it meant, and never followed up with a GI doctor. I was just glad that, I didn't have cancer or something. So I just carried on and had to really be careful when I was eating. And there were a lot of times when I wasn't careful when I was eating, and food would get stuck or sort of partially stuck, and I really had to learn how to swallow. So I'm always drinking when I'm eating. Always. And I certainly didn't take any precautions when eating since my last scope in 2015. I ate, and food would get stuck from time to time, or food would feel like it was getting stuck. It would go down slow. But I would do this like power swallow thing, and it would just knock the food right down, and I was fine. And I was fine up until about 10 days ago. And it was my 7-year-old's birthday party. Or actually, it was the Friday before that. I was eating at work. I was eating a sub, right? And I was fine. This wasn't an issue then. 10 days ago, this wasn't an issue. I was still fat 10 days ago. And I was eating, and like the last bite of the sandwich I swallowed, and it just kind of lingered in my esophagus for a second. And, I took a big swig of soda, which none of this is good for you. But it just felt like a rock going down my esophagus. But then something weird happened. I got this overwhelming rush of anxiety, panic, absolute extreme panic, because I thought that food was going to get stuck and I wasn't going to be able to get it out, and I was going to have to sit in the hospital, and I was going to have to wait until somebody believed me, first of all. In hospitals nowadays, I'll talk about that later, but hospitals nowadays, I feel like we're on our own. I really do. I feel like we are on our own. That hospitals are not the rescuers that they once were. Anyway, so 10 days ago, anxiety spiked as a result of a swallowing issue. Then it was on again, off again for a few days. I ate normally, I think. We had my kid's birthday party. I was fine. I was eating, chips and dip and just eating like regular. And then I swallowed something wrong. Oh, a piece of cake I swallowed. Usually it's that pasty stuff like bread and dough and cake and stuff like that. I'm not going to eat it anymore. But I swallowed it, and it hung around again. I didn't make a big deal of it. I didn't throw up. It went down, but it went down hard, and my anxiety spiked again. It's an immediate... We'll talk about that in a minute. We'll talk about the anxiety part in a minute. So I got to explain it. Because it's what's hurting me now, honestly. So anyway, long story long, as I always do. I had more and more difficulty swallowing from that incident on. 4 days, 5 days. I wasn't eating. Everything I ate felt like it was having a slow time getting down my esophagus. So I wasn't eating. And I was dropping weight, and more importantly, my anxiety was extreme. 10 out of 10. So much to the point where I said on Sunday, I took my kid to Dave & Buster's. And I'll try not to get emotional. It was kind of his first date with a little girl from bowling. And it wasn't a date at all, but it was the first time that he and another girl, a girl that, has confessed to having a crush on him. I I talked to the dad. I said, why don't we take these nerds to Dave and Buster's? And that was like a month ago, and we finally got it worked out. And it was for this past Sunday. And there was no way that I was going to take that away from him. There was no way that I was going to miss that. And I woke up Sunday morning feeling awful, overcome with anxiety, panic, not eating, honestly not eating, no nutrition in my body. I'm surviving on spoonfuls of applesauce and water. So I took him, and I immediately explained to the dad what was going on with me, why I wasn't going to be much fun. You know, we were planning, when we had talked about this a month ago, everything was fine. So him and I were going to hang out at the bar, drink some beers, we were going to eat, kids were going to play, and we were going to have a great time. And I told him when I got there, I'm not going to be much fun today. Here's why. He was fine with it. And Liam and his little friend just kind of ran around and did their thing. And aside from seeing my kid have such a great time, I was miserable. Felt like my throat was getting tighter. No appetite. Extremely weak. And just weak legs, weak knee, and high anxiety. I pulled through, it was fine, and I took him home. And I sat around the house for a few minutes, and I was just overcome with panic. Drove myself to the emergency department and had a miserable experience there. I had honestly thought at that point that I had cancer of the esophagus. Why? Because that's what an anxious mind tells you. But I was convinced that it was. I was convinced that I was never going to swallow again. And I was convinced that I had a few days left. I'm not kidding. I know that seems extreme. And it probably is. But I honestly felt like I was dying. One awful thought that I will admit to having was that maybe I didn't want to live with this anymore. And if I was going to go through this constant anxiety, then I wasn't going to be able to eat. In fact, I wasn't going to be able to swallow. And I was going to wither away. My organs were going to fail from not eating. I was thinking about not being here anymore. Which is an awful thought. But it was very real at the moment. So, after a miserable experience in the ER, emergency department, sitting in waiting room for 4.5 hours, you get called back just to tell the triage nurse what's wrong with you. She makes 0 decisions. I tell them what's going on, and they give me Pepcid. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Pepcid? Then they stuck an IV in me and sent me back to the waiting room, where an 85-year-old woman was brought in with symptoms of her second stroke. And she sat in the waiting room in a wheelchair with a hospital blanket on her. And I felt awful. Like, this is what our emergency rooms are. It's unbelievable. In fact, she had random emergency room patients going and advocating for her trying to get somebody to do something. I heard she called her family member. The family member called the family member was on the phone. They wanted to talk to the triage nurse or the intake person at the bulletproof window at the hospital. And I heard the woman saying, well, there are no updates. She's in the waiting room waiting to be seen. You know, there are no updates. She hasn't been seen yet. And that's awful. Anyway, after 4 hours, a doctor called me back, and I told him my story, and I broke down, and I was in tears because I was terrified. I was terrified. Long story long, again, they admit me, and my story convinces them to do an endoscopy the next day in the hospital, inpatient, which is what I wanted. I couldn't go home. I couldn't go a week waiting for an endoscopy. I couldn't. So they did the endoscopy 2 days ago. And as I was drifting off with the twilight sedation, which is actually fentanyl, as I was drifting off, I kept saying, just, please tell me that it's not cancer. And they were getting mad at me. They're like, you gotta relax and let this happen. Let yourself fall asleep. And the first thing I remember is waking up with a woman in my face going, "You're fine, you're fine." And then that's it. Back to sleep, back to my room, which is not a room, it's an observation bay, which is horrible to try to rest in. You're just behind a curtain. Anyway, I gotta turn around here. So an hour later, after I woke up, my emergency room nurse, the observation nurse, who just does all the catch-all stuff, they're just working the step up from the emergency department, the holding bay kind of thing. And she's like, yeah, everything went fine, you don't have cancer, but you got this thing. They think it's this thing, eosinophilic, or what did I say it was? Eosinophilic esophagitis. Yeah, they think you got that, but yeah, you're fine. So what I wanted was a esophagus dilation. What they can do is, when you have a narrow esophagus and you can't chew food or you can't swallow food, they'll put a balloon at the end of that camera and they'll inflate it, and they will inflate your esophagus and stretch it, and then you're good. And I was pretty sure that that's what I was going to get, and I didn't get it. So I still can't swallow food. So I was like, okay, but I still can't swallow. And so I got released that day, and I came home Monday, and I was still kind of sleepy from the fentanyl, so I went to sleep early. And all right, the second half of this is going to be about anxiety, because that's what is killing me right now. I don't have esophageal cancer, but I thought I did. I have this condition that I've always had, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure they diagnosed me with that in 2015, and I never thought about it again. And I just dealt with swallowing issues. Then they give it a label. Then they tell me what it is. And now that it has a name, which it's always had, now is when the anxiety takes over. And let me explain anxiety to you. My anxiety is the worst thing that I'm going through right now. I can adjust my diet and I can chew and swallow now, but very, very, very limited amounts of food. I have no appetite. I've been forcing scrambled eggs down, yogurt, watermelon. That's easy for some reason. Totally zero nutrition, but my anxiety has ripped away my appetite, which is depleting my weight, depleting my nutrition, and depleting my energy, my motivation, my mental health. My anxiety is deadly. Okay? And let me explain anxiety. Anxiety is not just, boy, sure am stressed about this. God, I wish it was that. I wish it was that. My anxiety is so physical. It feels like I am connected to an electrical outlet, walking around shocked all day. It feels like I have eaten straight bricks of caffeine. It feels like I have things running around in my chest. I cannot relax. I cannot sit still. My thoughts are horribly racing and horrible. My thoughts are horrible. The anxiety hits like it hits first thing in the morning, every day for the past 10 days or so, and dies down at night. At night is when I am like, okay, it's going to be a good day tomorrow. I'm going to get up, I'm going to have a little appetite, I'm going to eat, I'm going to eat slow, I'm going to not pay attention to how it feels going down my throat. I'm just going to get some nutrition in me. That doesn't happen. 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm up. I open my eyes, and immediately I've got that electric feeling flowing, and it stays with me all day. And it interferes with my work. I have canceled everybody this week, so that's a week without pay. I have 4 or 5 people to call back, new patients that I have not. And I have lost 16 pounds. Probably more. I haven't weighed myself in 2 days. Yesterday I ate some yogurt. I ate a cup of Greek yogurt with fruit in it, fruit on the bottom, whatever. Bottles of water, and I tried like Campbell's chicken and rice soup, but that was awful. The rice is like, it was terrible. So today I forced myself to eat some scrambled eggs, and it felt better. And I say that very, very cautiously. I am on a steroid, a liquid steroid, that is supposed to decrease the inflammation, but makes me feel freaking weird. It actually spikes anxiety for about 40 minutes after I drink it. It's an awful feeling. Now I'm at the grocery store because I want to buy some bananas and some more yogurt. my kids are, going without their dad, who's like out of it and not doing anything with them. My work is feeling the effects of this. And my anxiety's through the roof. My anxiety is telling me things that may or may not be true. All, of course, contributing to my demise. That's what's always in my head. Like, how do you live with not eating? Well, you adjust your diet. Yeah, okay, I get that, but I don't want to, but I have to, and I will. But that's the things that a person should tell themselves, Oh, it's cool. I watched a video on YouTube about a guy with this EOE thing. He's like, yeah, so this is what I have for breakfast, and this is what I have for lunch, and this is a shake I have for dinner. And I'm like, what are you so happy for? And I'm just ready to roll over and die. So this was a long video, but you guys have been around for 6+ years, 7 years. And all the messages that I've gotten, are you okay? Where are you? When I'm down, I don't respond to anything. That's a fault of mine. I just disappear, like an animal. An animal wants to die in a box, in a dark corner. They don't show their pain or anything in front of you. They crawl in a hole. And that's what I do when I don't feel well. I crawl in a hole. And that's what I've been doing for a while now. I don't know where I'm at. I'm going to continue the course of steroids and see if that reduces the inflammation. I think it is. I say cautiously, I think it is. And like 65-75% of this battle is the anxiety. The anxiety eliminates my need to eat. It takes it away. Plus there's a fear of swallowing. But yeah, I'm in a bad spot. To me, I'm making it worse, definitely. But any warm wishes, any prayers if that's your thing. But I won't be back until this is behind me, probably, because it's a hard thing to do, to go perform and do stuff for you and care. I don't care when I feel this way. But I do read the messages, and they do make me feel appreciated. And so, anyway, that's it. That's the story, and that's where I've been. Hopefully see you soon.